December 7, 1941. The Japanese unleash a devastating attack against Pearl Harbor, dealing a painful blow to the Pacific Fleet. More than 2,000 American servicemen perish while attempting to repel the onslaught. And although the attack fails to knock out the strategically important aircraft carriers, it succeeds in shaking the American people to the core. Entering the war is no longer a choice. It is a necessity. On December 11, Nazi Germany declares war against the United States. Just a few days later, Operation Paukenschlag is put in motion by the commander of U-boats, Karl Dönitz. This long-range operation is an attempt to cripple the U.S. merchant fleet, which holds a key role in supplying Great Britain in its struggle against Hitler. All along the U.S. East Coast, German U-boats sink hundreds of American tankers and cargo ships, slowly tightening the noose around the neck of Great Britain. It is clear that without American support to their war effort, Britain's survival will be measured not in months, but in weeks. With the majority of its might focused on fighting the Japanese in the Pacific, the U.S. Navy is left with very few anti-submarine vessels available for the Atlantic theater, not even remotely enough to introduce an efficient convoy system that could protect the merchant fleet from the U-boats. The bloodbath continues for months, and the fire from burning tankers becomes a common sight from the shores of the East Coast. The survival of Great Britain now hangs by a thread. Finally, in May 1942, the U.S. Navy manages to muster enough anti-submarine ships to put the convoy system into effect. Now, with the help of the Royal Canadian Navy, merchant ships are escorted along the U.S. coast to form convoys around Newfoundland. Only then are they ready, having been joined by their guardian angels, to set out on the perilous journey across the Atlantic. At last, the steel wolves of Dönitz will be facing a challenge. They are about to meet a whole new breed of enemy. Fast, maneuverable, and more than capable of sending a submarine to the bottom. The Fletcher-class destroyer.
Jansen arriving.
Good evening, Captain. All preparations for getting underway are on schedule. The XO is already on board, as are the department heads. 2 boilers are lit off and building steam. Everything is on track for a dawn departure.
Very well, thank you.
Executive officer to the officer's wardroom.
We have been assigned to lead a very small formation. The bad news is that the only other escort we have is about as slow and lightly armed as some of the merchant ships we're traveling with.
That is bad news indeed. Weren't we supposed to have more escorts?
I was hoping for that too, but our convoy and routing division does not have enough of them apparently. The Canadians are helping as much as they can, but until they send the next wave of reinforcements, we will have to make do with less.
And what are we up against?
The U-boat threat has been rather limited recently, so that seems like good news for our friends from the Merchant Navy.
What do the orders say about air support?
Unfortunately, there won't be much, if any, air support for us this time. What I'm worried about is the weather. It has been pretty sketchy so far this month. Let's just hope it doesn't affect us too badly.
That could be good for us, Captain. It will be more difficult for the sub's lookouts to spot our convoy against a dark, rainy sky. If that is all, then let's get a good night's sleep. It may be the last one we get for a while.
And so it begins, my first Atlantic pass. Let's just hope it won't be the last. There are so many things I do not know. Very little is under my control. The crew has been trained, but few have seen actual battle. How will they respond when facing the enemy? How will I respond? The Jansen is the most capable ship in the convoy. It is fast, maneuverable, and heavily armed. I feel anxious for the merchant crews. They truly are sitting ducks. Their only protection is this ship and the single Canadian escort. We are to rendezvous with the RCN at Halifax. I hope the crew can take some liberty there. With only 2 escorts, it will be difficult to protect the convoy from all sides. We will have to focus on priority contacts. If at least one U-boat gets through, this can easily turn into a bloodbath. The weather has been deteriorating for some time now. If it were not for the essential war cargo, any sensible mariner would wait out these storms in port. But we have our orders to set sail regardless of the weather. We're on our own this trip. I was told not to expect any air support at all. Allied intelligence thinks that there are a few U-boats along our path, suggesting low chances of enemy contact. I really hope that is correct, but my gut tells me otherwise.
Surface radar has a new contact. Bearing 066. Range 5,700 yards.
Bridge combat. New surface contact from radar. Bearing 066. Range 5,700 yards. I designate contact able. Time 19:03.
Contact able now bears 064. Range 5,400 yards.
Lookouts. Anything at 064. I see nothing. Bearing 064.
Contact able now bears
Radio
0,
Captain.
6,
Send a report to
4,
Convoy Commodore.
range
Jansen has unknown
5,200
contact on
yards.
radar, left flank of the convoy.
Contact able, coming in much more strongly. I evaluate as a definite contact.
Captain I. Officer of the deck, set general quarters.
Set general quarters. Aye. General quarters. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Set conditions zebra throughout the ship.
Contact able.
Stern depth charge detail manned and ready. Main battery reports manned and ready. Engineering officer watch reports engineering manned and ready. Zebra set. 4 boilers online. Max speed 32 knots. Electric plant split. All fire pumps online.
Very well.
All escorts. Mountie holds a possible sub bearing 197, range 3,200 yards. From Mountie, convoy will turn left to avoid. Mountie, break escort to attack sub. Bloodhound, break convoy to assist.
Roger, moving toward Mountie. Out.
Bridge combat. New contact from sonar. Bearing 197. Range 3,200 yards. I designate contact able. Time 21:1.
Bloodhound, this is Mountie. Mountie now has sonar contact. Able. Bearing 200. Range 3,300 yards from Bloodhound.
Captain I. Officer of the deck, set general quarters.
Set general quarters. Aye. General quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Set condition zebra throughout the ship.
Bloodhound, this is Mountie. Mountie now has sonar contact. Able. Bearing 202. Range 3,300 yards from Bloodhound.
Stern depth charge detail manned and ready. Main battery ports manned and ready. Engineering officer of the watch.
The Battle of the Atlantic took place in the 1940s. During that time, most U-boats were still diesel-electric and so could not stay submerged for prolonged periods of time. Therefore, you're very likely to detect them on the surface using radar before they close in for the attack. Once a U-boat submerges, you can no longer detect it using radar, and you will have to use sonar instead. Unlike radar, the sonar of the 1940s had to be pointed in the appropriate direction in order to detect the enemy. Bear that in mind when you lose radar contact with the enemy, and, most importantly, remember this. Radar works only for surfaced contacts, while sonar works only for submerged contacts. Last but not least, the 1940 sonar also has a dead zone right under your destroyer, which is crucial to remember. The most important thing you need to understand, however, is that everything at sea is ruled by the compass. Consequently, every instrument, report, and command also refers to it. It works just like the clock, with 000 or 360 at the top, 090 on the right, 180 at the bottom, and 270 on the left. These three-digit codes are called bearings, and they refer to the cardinal points. 000 or 360 is the north, 090 is the east, 180 is the south, and 270 is the west. So, if there is a contact at bearing 090, it means that it is located east of our position. This system allows the crew to quickly exchange information regarding where the enemy has been detected, what course to take, and so on. Once you understand it, it quickly becomes second nature. In summary, the most important information for you will always be the position of the currently tracked enemy, which is given in bearings, which direction, and ranges, how far away from your position. The last thing you need to know is how to execute a successful depth charge attack. The problem consists in hitting a moving object in 3D space with a weapon that has a considerable delay between being fired and hitting the target. In general, the attack has to be made in such a way as to drop the depth charges with a lead ahead of the U-boat's bow. What is more, the depth charge fuse must be set for shallow, medium, or deep. Bear in mind that the deeper you set the fuse, the longer it takes the depth charges to reach the set depth. The optimal time to drop depth charges is calculated by an analog computer called the Tactical Range Recorder. It measures the speed of closing the distance between your destroyer and the target, and will help you to decide when to give the order to fire. Because of that, pay close attention to what the tutorial says about using the TRR, as it will make the difference between success and failure. In reality, the chances of hitting a U-boat with depth charges were rather slim, but due to the devastating effects that even close misses had on the submarine's morale, harassing and suppressing the U-boat was often enough to make its crew abandon further attack attempts, at least for some time. Now that you understand the most essential facts about anti-submarine warfare in the Second World War, you can proceed with the tutorial.